time for all the news you need and more. Brookland News Live starts right now.
Alrighty, welcome live here into Brookland News Live. I want to jump right in here. I am Jackson Mitchell. It is Thursday, April 30th. It is good to be with you. There is a lot of headlines we are going to get to. I do want to start right now. President Trump, he is at the White House. We're going to take you live there right now.
4 years was crazy.
And I apologize about that audio there, but he is signing executive orders, multiple executive orders. I'm not sure exactly what this executive order that he just signed was, but I do know the first one that he signed was on retirement savings. So we do want to take you there live right now and listen into the president at the White House.
Firefighters do an incredibly difficult, dangerous job, help keep us all safe. This is a proclamation honoring their sacrifice and remembering those who have fallen.
Great. Everybody likes that?
You bet.
Okay. Firefighters.
That one deserves
Okay.
Lastly, sir, this is another proclamation. Your administration, particularly the First Lady, have made foster and adoptive care major priorities. This is a proclamation declaring National Foster Care Month, honoring those who have participated in foster programs, who have helped raise foster children,
Right.
And speaking about the many things that your administration, including the First Lady's office, have done on that set of issues.
Yeah, it's been a big thing for the First Lady, so this is in honor of our First Lady.
Well
I
spent time in foster care.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
That is good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So do you have any questions? Maybe we discuss the first signing first? Do you have anything on that?
Mr. President,
Please.
how is this going to help small business owners? Do you think this is going to inspire more people to go into small businesses that might be reluctant earlier, for IRA, to have their IRA? This is going to help
Well,
give
I'll
them.
tell you, small businesses now are thriving. And as you know, more people are working right now than at any time in the history of our country. We're doing great. And there's more investment being made in the United States than any country at any time in history. And a lot of that's AI, and a lot of that's maybe in a certain way, maybe more importantly, auto plants are all coming back to our country. They're coming back from different countries where they left us, for Germany, as you know, and Japan, and South Korea, and Canada, Mexico. And they're all coming back at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And tariffs did it. I did it. Maybe the election did it, but tariffs did it. And if they build here, they don't have to pay tariffs. We have Germany is giving a lot of companies are coming in from Germany, from Japan. Japan just announced $10 billion more plants going to be built between Toyota and Honda and all the different companies they're pouring into our country. In South Korea, Canada, they're coming in. I don't know what they're doing, but I can tell you they're coming in tremendously from Canada. There's no reason they don't want to pay the tariff, and because of that, they're investing at levels never seen before. We will, for 30 years we virtually didn't build an auto plant in this country, and now we're doing more than we've ever done. So I'm very proud of that. AI is going wild. We're doing great, and we're letting them build their own electric, but we're actually making them build their own electric plant, so they take tremendous amounts of energy to have a successful plant. And they're building, all of the new ones are building their own electric plant, like a utility, and any extra they'll either give it or sell it for a good price to local communities and to the grid. So it's going to be fantastic. But we have tremendous amounts of factories being built in our country now, more than we've ever had at any time ever before. And we have the biggest investment being made in our country. In the history of our country, by the way, in the history of any country, there's never been a country that has the kind of investment coming in that we have right now. And these things are being built right now. So you're not going to see the results. I mean, you see construction results. You notice the construction workers are through the roof. But when they open, the numbers are going to be staggering. Do you have a question?
I certainly do. Thank you, Mr. President. You had some good economic news, GDP, 2% growth.
Yeah.
New orders for business equipment surged to the highest level in 6 years. And IRS data shows that the average federal tax return is up by more than 11% when you compare it to the same time as last year. Do you believe that
It
this
is
is
up over
evidence?
100%.
Do you believe that this is evidence that the big, beautiful tax cuts that you signed into law last year are working? And do you think the economy is going to continue to hum as the year progresses?
Yeah, thank you. So the biggest tax cut in history is in the great, big, beautiful bill. And I think, I see it. I actually see it reported where people are shocked at how much money they're making. They can't believe the refunds that they're making. 5,000, 6,000, 7, 8, 9. One I saw one last night on television, 11,000 more than she thought she was going to get. And it's no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our seniors, no tax on social. Nobody can believe it even. And the numbers are far greater than they thought. People that thought they were going to make an extra $500, turns out they're making an extra $5,000. So it's been really great, yeah. And that's going to carry forward. Look, the country's doing really well. And that's despite a military operation. I don't call it a war. Would you rather have a military operation where really, Iran is dying to make a deal. I can only tell you that. I don't want to get into it, but they cannot be nuclear other than that. But their Navy's gone, their Air Force is gone. Every ounce of any form of equipment practically is gone. Their drone factories are about 82% down, and their missile factories are almost 90% down. And many of their missiles have been knocked out. They used some, but we knocked out more than they used. And it's pretty amazing what's happened. They want to make a deal. But despite the fact that we are in what some people would call a war, we just hit a new high today on the stock market. We have S&P is through the roof. They're through the roof. And, when we hit 50,000 on the Dow and 7,000 on the S&P, I said to myself, we got to do something about Iran. They want to have a nuclear weapon. You can't let them have a nuclear weapon. And I hated to do it to my people because they said 50,000. Peter, you know this, that 50,000 wouldn't be obtainable in my 4 years or anybody's 4 years. And we hit 50,000 in my first year, the end of my first year. We hit 7,000 on the S&P. They said that would be even less attainable. And we hit that at the end of the first year, before the year was up. And then I said to Kevin, sorry about this, Kevin, but we have to put out a fire. And the fire is taking place in the lovely country of Iran. And they want to have a nuclear weapon. And if we didn't use this beautiful, see that plane right there? That beautiful B-2 bomber. It looks small there, but it's actually quite it doesn't look very powerful there, but it's quite large, actually. We ordered 25 more of them, the updated version. All built in America, which is very nice, right? But if we didn't have that B-2 bomber, if we didn't go in and do what we did, we obliterated that nuclear capacity of theirs, and so they didn't get the nuclear bomb. If we didn't do that attack, should have been done long before I came along by other presidents or by another country or something, but it should have been done long before I came along. But they are in very bad shape. They've got nothing going, including leadership. Their leaders are gone. Now they have a whole new, their first string leaders are gone. Their second string leaders are gone. Now we're dealing with their third string. But we'll see what happens. It's been an amazing period of time between Venezuela and where we're doing great. We're getting along with them great. We're working very closely with them. They're doing more oil now than they've done in many, many decades, actually. And they're making more money, and so are we. It's like a joint venture, to be honest. And we've paid for the attack many times over. The attack, something you've never heard before, probably. I always used to say to the victor, belong the spoils. But we've paid for the attack, which is always expensive. But it was a less than 1 day attack. It was actually a 45-minute attack. And that's a good, they have a good military in Venezuela, but they did not expect that and that and that and that. Other than that. But when these suckers come at you at 2,500 miles an hour, at 25 feet off the ground, you say, this is not what I bargained for. This is no good. Anyway, so, and now, you know, Venezuela was amazing, but now we're doing essentially, it's larger, but we're doing essentially the same thing in Iran. Can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And their economy is crashing. The blockade is incredible. The power of the blockade is incredible. They're not getting any money from oil. And hopefully it can be worked out very soon. Yeah.
Iran is proving to be very stubborn. The talks seem like they are stalled. Are you getting antsy to break the ceasefire?
Well, I mean, I don't know what stubborn is because really nobody knows what the talks are except myself and a couple of other people. They want to make a deal badly. We have a problem because nobody knows for sure who the leaders are. It's a little bit of a problem, you know. The leaders have been wiped out along with their military, almost all of their military. I mean, think of it. 159 ships was their total Navy. 159 ships are gone. They're underwater. They're way below sea level. Sea level is a big difference. Pretty deep waters over there, too. So, I don't know that we need it. We might need it.
And on Iran, a little while ago, the president of FIFA said that when the World Cup is here in the U.S., the team from Iran will be playing in the games.
Well, if Johnny said it, I'm okay. Are you did Johnny say it?
He did? What if they
Johnny
win?
Infantino, that's a piece of work.
What if they win?
Well, if they win, we'll have to worry about that. That's not. I'm going to have to worry about that one. That would look. You know what? Let him play well. Johnny's fantastic. You know, he's a friend of mine, and he talked about it. I said, "You do whatever you want. You can have them. You don't have to have them. Probably have a good team. I don't know. Do they have a good team? Do you have any idea?"
I have no idea.
Would be hard to believe, actually, but I think let him play. Right?
This is a little bit different, but what is your take on these reports that your show, The Apprentice, is going to could come back on Amazon with host Donald Trump Jr.?
Well, I've been hearing it. Look, we had a great success, 14 seasons, and The Apprentice was a tremendous success. So I've been hearing that, you know, a little bit. So we'll see what happens. He's good. He's a good guy. He'd be probably good. He's got a little charisma going. You need a little charisma for that soccer smash. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, they told me about it. We'll see.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. There's been some talks about changes to your security after what took place.
Changing my security.
Changing your security after what took place.
Well, they did a pretty good job, actually. You know, they stopped the NFL running back. I mean, he was like a running back. In fact, if he ever got out, they're probably going to sign him. He was a speedy guy, but he was stopped. They had many levels in front of him before he would even come to us. You know, you could be a baseball team and win 19-0, and somebody could say, you should have won 21. You should have gotten 25 runs. The team was no good or something. So I don't know. I can only say that I know a lot of those people at Secret Service, and they were good and they were forceful. And I saw the guys in front of me. They were powerful-looking guys. I said we could send them to Hollywood. They could make movies. I think that there's always room for improvement, right? And he got into the building. The problem is I know that's what I do. I build buildings like that. You know, much nicer, actually, but I build buildings like that. And, you know, when you have 1,000 rooms sitting on top of a ballroom, and you have the elevators coming down right near the entrance, it's a pretty tough situation. Now, right outside, we have something that's on time, on budget, actually ahead of time, ahead of budget depending on finishes. You know, finishes is a big difference between marble and onyx in price, but it's right on budget, right on time. And that's built to the highest standards of security. No units on top, no hotel built on top where an elevator comes right down through the middle of it. It's a tough location. That's a tough location. So I think I know the people at Secret Service. I think they're great, and I think the Congress has to take care of those people. You know, we're talking about ICE, we're talking about Border Patrol, Secret Service, everyone. The Democrats essentially want to defund the police, just so you know. They want to defund law enforcement. It's crazy. These people have gone crazy. I heard Hakeem Jeffries, a low IQ person, he's a very low IQ, screaming today that the Supreme Court is illegitimate. I mean, that's a dangerous statement. Then if I say something modest, they say, oh, he's a king, he's a king. They're sick. But Hakeem Jeffries said the Supreme Court is illegitimate. That's a rough statement. If I made that statement, it would be the biggest story out there. Bad things would happen.
One of the ideas.
Go ahead.
The average price of a gallon of gas is now $4.30
All right,
in this
yeah.
country.
And you know what? And we're not going to have a nuclear weapon in the hands of Iran.
But
The gas will go down. As soon as the war's over, it'll drop like a rock. There's so much of it. It's all over the place, sitting all over the oceans of the world. And it'll go down. But what won't happen is if Iran had a nuclear weapon and used it, then the whole world is a different place.
What about
You're
the
not going to have to
midterms?
pay
Impact
a little
on
bit more for
Republicans?
gasoline. The gasoline, the oil will go down rapidly as soon as the war is over.
Can I follow up?
Brian?
Good
Good to see you again,
Brian,
sir.
go ahead.
I've got two questions. First, I want to follow up on Daniel's question. I've described you as the peacemaker. You're achieving peace around the world. Due to these latest policies, big beautiful bill, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, now the Trump account, and then the IRA account. Could we describe you as the wealth maker?
Well, I'm helping people out. It's a nice question, actually, but I'm helping people out. These people are with me. You know, these are great people. And feel free to speak up if you'd like, because they wanted this to happen, and we got it done. And they're Republican people, I think, in all cases, right? In all cases. It's crazy. We need, like always, unanimous, because the Democrats, they will vote against anything, no matter how good. If they had their favorite thing in the world, and we happen to want it, but we found a new strategy. We're going to oppose every single thing that we want, and we'll get unanimous votes. So I'm going to come up and oppose everything, Brian, from this point forward, and they'll vote for it. Go ahead.
Second question. You created Space Force on
Yeah.
the second end, towards the end of your first administration.
Right.
You just had the Artemis II crew in here. I know it's a big accomplishment. What do you see moving forward, the duration of your administration in terms of space exploration? I know that was a big moment for you.
Well, doing Space Force I think it's going to go down as one of my more important things. It's turning out. Even a lot of these great military operations that we have right now, when you look at Venezuela, when you look at like the decimation of Iran, which was considered powerful, it was the bully of the Middle East. And a lot of that took place so effectively because of what's coming out of space. When we did Space Force, when I did Space Force, I'm very proud of it, space was like, we were third. China was first, Russia was second. Now we've leapfrogged. We're way ahead of China, we're way ahead of Russia. And we made some great choices. The first person that headed Space Force, and really after that we had a couple of really great people heading it. Always very important. And a new person is heading it now. I think he has a chance to be as good as anybody, as good as, maybe better, I don't know. But we've had great people heading up Space Force. It's been very important. It's been very important for what we're doing with respect to the different places. And as far as peace, I settled 8 wars. And people try and dispute it, but then they go over them. And almost in every case, they sent letters thanking me and letters to the Nobel Committee. I don't care about that. Maria was very nice. She gave me a Nobel Peace Prize because she said she didn't deserve it. She was very, very nice. But I settled 8 wars. And in every case, the people, the prime ministers or presidents wrote letters thanking me. And in the case of India, look, the biggest one would have been Pakistan, India. The prime minister of Pakistan said, I saved from 30 to 50 million lives, but it could have been more than that. 2 nuclear nations were going at it. 11 airplanes were shot down. They were in the first week of what would have been a very bad war, and I got it solved. You know how I got it solved? By the use of tariffs. I said, I'm going to charge you tariffs if you guys keep fighting. And they said, oh, please don't do that.
You just lifted some tariffs, right? You just lifted some tariffs on whiskey, is that correct?
Yeah, what I'm doing is for as long as I've been here, they've wanted to, Kentucky, which is a great place, and I also won, Jason, by a lot. But Kentucky, with the bourbon, and Scotland with the whiskey, and they've had trade for years and years and years, and a lot of restrictions, a lot of different restrictions took place that didn't amount to much, and it really stopped them. I don't know if you know, it's a barrel trade. They use the barrels from the one to take care of the other, and the barrels are only good for 1 unit. In other words, they can't be used twice. They can only be used once, but the once makes it a better substance. I'm not a big drinker, so forgive me. But it makes them a big substance and a better taste. But they dealt for years. This was Scotland and Kentucky, mostly Kentucky. And I just took all the restrictions off. So Scotland and Kentucky can start dealing again. And I did it in honor of the king and queen who just left. They're heading back. And it was a big deal. They've been trying to get this for a long time.
Yes, you talked about possibly pulling out some troops out of Germany. Would you be considering the same thing for Spain and Italy? I mean, they haven't been exactly on board.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I probably will. Why should I? Look, why shouldn't I? Italy has not been of any help to us. And Spain has been horrible, absolutely horrible. It's NATO. It's not even the fact that they're bad. It's one thing if they said nicely, or if they said, okay, we'll help, but the help's a little slow. But the level, and we helped them with Ukraine. They made a mess out of Ukraine, a total mess. And we helped them with Ukraine. Ukraine has nothing to do, we're an ocean apart. It has to do with them. It's like for them, it's their front door. We help them. And Biden gave them $350 billion, which was insane. It's one of the reasons the war went on. But when we needed them, they were not there. We have to remember that. And so if we ever have a big one, because we didn't need any help with Iran. We had Iran right from the first day it was over. It was over. And now it's even more so. We're so locked and loaded if we want to do. But we didn't need the help. And to a certain extent, I asked them, I didn't need the help, but I said, yeah, we'd love to have you help because I wanted to see if they do it. And they, in all cases, they said, we don't want to get involved. And the amazing thing is they use the Strait of Hormuz. We don't. We don't use it. We don't need it. We have a lot of oil. Well, wait a minute. And they use it. We don't. And you would have thought they would have said, we would love to help you. But they didn't, which I think was a verse. And Germany, he's doing a terrible job. He's got immigration problems. He's got energy problems. He's got problems of all kinds. And he's got a big problem with Ukraine because they're in that mess. And he criticized me for doing the whole thing with Iran. But I said, would you like to have a nuclear weapon in the hands of Iran? He said, no, I don't. I said, well, then I guess I'm right. He didn't have any answer to that. The bottom line is for this world, for our country, but certainly for Israel, the Middle East, and Europe, much closer.
Alrighty, there you have been listening in to President Donald Trump take questions from the press inside the Oval Office, making a number of kind of quick headlines here, including on Iran, where he has continued claims that Iran is begging to make a deal. The U.S., of course, also trying to make a deal with Iran. Trump said that the leaders, they don't quite know who exactly has control over what. Therefore, there is a struggle in negotiating. That is, of course, something that we have previously reported right here on Brookland News Live. He also has said that gas prices will fall as soon as this war comes to an end. We will bring you the latest on the war in Iran coming up here in just a moment. So stick with us for that. He signed a number of executive orders, including honoring those fallen firefighters, retirement savings, as he launches a new website, TrumpIRA.gov, for people to get more in their retirement savings. We will bring you more of that, and we're monitoring this, and if something comes out that past the point that we kind of stopped listening in, we will bring that to you. A look right now on the right side of your screen at the traffic inside the Strait of Hormuz as the U.S. is continuing its blockade. Now to some news from Capitol Hill. We want to take you to our live shot there right now, where we're learning earlier today the House passed a bill to fund most of the Department of Homeland Security. That ends the longest government shutdown, partial government shutdown, in the agency's history, and sends the measure to President Donald Trump. Now, the bill does not include funding for immigration enforcement, which, as you remember, was the main reason of disagreement, the main source of disagreement here between Democrats and Republicans. The shutdown had caused financial strain on workers and had raised multiple concerns about airport disruptions as funding ran low. Lawmakers plan to handle immigration enforcement future in a separate measure that would provide, while the current measure again provides immediate support for other DHS operations. Now, if you remember our report that we kind of brought you on this, that Secretary of the DHS, Markwayne Mullin, had said that they were running low on those emergency funds that President Trump had signed that executive order for the department to use in order to pay the TSA agents and those that are unpaid there. So for sure, an argument that is going to come up in the House of Representatives and the Senate and across the executive branch as well very soon on ICE and CBP, the Customs and Border Protection funding. Of course, that department is funded until 2027. And with the way the House and the Senate have been working in recent sessions, it's going to be interesting to see how long until they actually get to that fight in funding. The economy today also growing 2% from January to March in a brand new report. It says, again, the U.S. economy grew 2%. That is from January to March here. Recovering from a 43-day federal government shutdown in the fall of 2025, the growth marked a significant improvement from the 0.5% expansion back in late last year. So the Commerce Department reporting that government spending and investment increased at a 9.3% annual rate, contributing over half a percentage point spending, which accounts for 70% of economic activity, which slowed to a 1.6 from 1.9% in the previous quarter. So a lot of numbers there. Spending on goods and services, that has declined here. Business investment, particularly in artificial intelligence, did rise, though, by 8.7%, while residential investment, people investing in new homes and for their homes, fell by 8%, marking the fifth consecutive quarterly drop. Non-residential investment, excluding housing, surged by 10.4%, so that'd be like cars and things of that nature. This is the largest increase in nearly 3 years, an increase in imports rising 21.4% in an annual rate there. That reduced first quarter growth by more than 2.6 percentage points. So the economic outlook is uncertain. And we say that because there, of course, is still an ongoing war in Iran. Not only that, but a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Crucial choke point for global oil and gas supplies. As we've noted here before, this has led to higher energy prices, inflation, and increased consumer struggles. And now, as Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell noted yesterday after he announced that interest rates would remain the same here, he noted that things are uncertain and it's hard to predict the future when we talk about the economy because you do have an ongoing war and prices continuing to rise. And I remember I kind of remarked about this a little bit yesterday, but he said if gas prices continue to rise, that is going to be taking away spendable money that Americans would use to put back into the GDP, which is the gross domestic product. So, of course, that's going to be something to look at. So we're going to be watching for this. We'll bring you updates and, of course, tariffs. That's also a question here. We heard President Trump even mention tariffs in that meeting in the Oval Office, which, of course, as you take a look live, there is still ongoing. So, again, that is what we are learning at this hour, right this moment. Alrighty, we do want to take you to what we are now learning on the war in Iran. President Trump, as we brought to you a few moments ago, continuing to say that Iran wants to make a deal. And we are now learning throughout yesterday the price tag on the war in Iran. Pete Hegseth, who serves as the Secretary of the Department of Defense or War, testified to Congress on the Department of Defense's budget. It was revealed the price of this war. This is just an argument as Ro Khanna, who is the Democratic representative from California, pressed Hegseth on the exact price here. Take a listen.
Do you know how much it will cost Americans in terms of their increased cost in gas and food over the next year because of the Iran war?
I would simply ask you what the cost is of an Iranian nuclear bomb.
I'm going to give you that opportunity.
I would simply ask you what the... you're playing gotcha questions about
no,
domestic things. I'm not...
You're saying it's a gotcha question to ask what it's going to be in terms of the increased
Why
cost
won't
of
you
gas
answer what
and
it costs to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb?
I give you that, sir. But let me...
What would it cost? What would you pay to ensure Iran doesn't get a nuclear bomb? What would you pay?
Let me give you this point. You're saying that your operation is preventing a nuclear Iran. Will you acknowledge that there is an economic cost to the American people for doing what you believe is necessary to make Iran denuclear? Will you acknowledge the economic cost?
We have an incredible economic team that's managing this better than what the previous administration did to our economy, what the previous administration did with inflation, what the previous administration did with COVID, and you're going to lecture this administration about the economy?
You know what is upsetting?
Incredible.
You didn't even do the analysis on how much it's costing the American people. It's one thing if you said, okay, it costs the American people $5,000, but we think it's worth it. That's what we've done in World War II and other wars. Here's what it costs. You got to pay for it. You don't even know what the average American is paying. You don't know what we paid in terms of the missiles that hit the Iranian school. You don't know what we're paying in terms of gas. You don't know what we're paying in terms of food. Your 25 billion number is totally off. It's the incompetence.
Yeah, so a little bit of duck and dodge there by Hegseth, as he kind of didn't directly answer that question, and it's unclear why he didn't. Was it because he didn't have the information directly in front of him? We don't quite know. We know the war has caused Americans, though, $25 billion. The fighting still continuing. As you take a look there live in Jerusalem, Israel, we'll take you back to our camera or a live look here at the Strait of Hormuz traffic as the Central Command leader, Admiral Brad Cooper, has said that 42 ships have been blocked. Take a look at this statement coming into us yesterday from Admiral Brad Cooper. Again, he is the commander of the CENTCOM, excuse me. He says, quote, today U.S. forces, this is again a statement from yesterday, U.S. forces achieved a significant milestone after successfully redirecting the 42nd commercial vessel attempting to violate the blockade. This is a reflection of the outstanding work American sons and daughters in uniform are doing to prevent maritime commerce from entering or exiting Iranian ports. Right now, there are 41 tankers with 69 million barrels of oil that the Iranian regime can't sell. That's an estimated $6 billion plus from which Iran's leadership cannot financially benefit. The blockade is highly effective, and U.S. forces remain fully committed to total enforcement. So again, that is a statement coming in from Admiral Brad Cooper yesterday on the 42nd ship being blocked from the Strait of Hormuz. We're also now learning when we talk about the war in Iran, not only that, but the Ukrainian-Russian war, that President Donald Trump had a phone call with Vladimir Putin, who is the president of Russia. Excuse me. Take a listen to him as he detailed that yesterday inside the Oval Office.
You spoke to Vladimir Putin not too long ago. Did you talk to him
about today? I talked about Ukraine, and I talked a little bit about Iran. I talked about a few different subjects, mostly about Ukraine, and we had a very good conversation. I think we're going to come up with a solution relatively quickly, I hope.
What does he want?
I think he'd like to see a solution, I can tell you, and that's good. He told me he'd like to be involved with the enrichment if he can help us get it. I said, I'd much rather have you be involved with ending the war with Ukraine. He doesn't want to see them have a nuclear weapon either. But I had a long talk with President Putin. I suggested a little bit of a ceasefire, and I think he might do that. He might announce something having to do with it.
Do you think the war in Iran ends first or the war in Ukraine?
Well, we talked more about the war in Ukraine, but he would like to be of help. I said, before you help me, I want to end your war.
But which war do you think ends first?
That's an interesting question. You know, coming from you, that's very interesting. Which war would end first? I don't know. Maybe they're on a similar timetable. I think Ukraine, militarily, they're defeated.
Yeah, so President Trump saying he thinks they might be on a similar timetable. That's going to be something to watch here throughout the next few weeks, as again, that ceasefire in Iran has been extended indefinitely, and there is no ceasefire in the war in Ukraine and Russia. We do know that President Vladimir Putin expressed that he did want a one-day ceasefire for an event. We'll bring you more on that if we do get more on that, and if there is some type of agreement for that. As we take a look at fuel prices, as again, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Gas prices continuing to rise. $4.30 is the national average today. Yesterday, it was just $4.22, so that is up 8 cents, and we've seen them rapidly rising once again. As the weeks have gone on here. $3.79 in Arkansas, that is also up from yesterday's average throughout the natural state. $3.82 in Jonesboro, again, that is up. So earlier in the month, we started to see them fall down. Now we're seeing them rise up, but this time it is at an expeditious rate here, and it's going to be something that we're going to continue to bring you. So again, $4.30 the national average. President Trump remarking today when we were live inside the Oval Office that he believes gas prices will fall again once the strait is reopened and once this war is over. Alrighty, we are going to get to some more headlines coming up here in just a moment. President Donald Trump, he is still taking questions from the White House. We want to go back here for just a few more moments, as it might be wrapping up here in a moment. I can't quite tell, but we do want to listen in for a few more moments.
To me, why? And people are angry about it. People are angry. I'm talking about Republicans are angry about it. The filibuster should be terminated. If the Democrats ever get a shot, which probably, based on history, sometime they will use it in the first minute of the first hour, and they will execute all of the bad things. 21 justices, you know, they really like 21. I heard 13, but they really want 21 Supreme Court justices. And they really want to have D.C. and Puerto Rico become states. That would mean automatic 4 senators go into the Democrat column. And there's not even a chance that they don't do it and do it immediately. Now, with that knowledge, because you could argue whether it's good or bad, but I don't think it's that much of an argument, frankly. But you could argue, with that knowledge that they're going to do it immediately, why wouldn't you do it as a Republican? Unless you have bad motives, almost. But if we did it, we could pass one bill after the other. We could pass laws and acts and things that we never even dreamt of passing. And you know what else? We wouldn't lose for 50 years. You know, if we terminated the filibuster, we would have a 50-year run. You'd stop cheating. I mean, look, they're professional cheats, and they're great at it. That's what they're best at, because you can't get elected with their policy. You can't get elected with men and women's sports, with transgender mutilization of our children, with open borders for jails to be dropped into our country, and mental institutions, and drug dealers and murderers. Think of it, 11,888 murders come into our country. Nobody even talks to them about it, right? We got a lot of them out because of, you know why? Because of ICE, which they don't want to fund. They're defunding our police. When they defund ICE and with Border Patrol and Secret Service, they're defunding our police. The same thing as they're doing with an officer on the street corner. So why the Republicans Senate doesn't just sit in there and just do it and take a negative vote and do it again and again like the Democrats do. They go again and again. The war power. I'm negotiating a deal with Iran. And every week, every 3 days, they put in a thing that the war should stop. And people ask me, how the hell do you negotiate like that? You're destroying them. Every day I read, think of it, we militarily decapitated the country. And every day I read about how well they're doing militarily. They got nothing left. They're done. And yet I read in the New York Times, I see in that stupid CNN, which I only watch because you have to watch a little bit of the enemy. So I watch it for a very short period. But you have to be smart. And if you see CNN, you'd think they're winning the war. If you read the New York Times, it's actually seditious, in my opinion. You read the New York Times, you actually think they're winning the war. I read some of these columnists, but it's all starts from the top.
Okay. I just want to listen in for a few more moments. I apologize for cutting it off in the middle here. We do have a lot of more headlines that we do want to bring you, but I did just want to dip in for just a few more moments here as President Trump called for Republicans and a few Democrats, because that is what would be needed to remove the filibuster inside the Senate, which is the rule that has stopped so many bills from passing inside the Senate because, again, if you followed Capitol Hill for a long time, you might already know this, but the filibuster requires 60 votes. There is not quite 60 Republicans inside the Senate. It's like 51, I believe. I'm not sure if that's correct. Don't take me for my word there. But meaning they would need help from Democrats, and they don't have all that help from Democrats a lot of times, and that is why a few bills have stopped getting passed. Trump also saying, targeting some news networks, saying they're covering the war as if we're losing the war. Of course, President Trump has remained that the U.S. is winning the war in Iran. Now to our next story that's also on Capitol Hill. Pete Hegseth testifying in front of House and Senate committees. Today, it was the Senate committee. Here is a look at Capitol Hill today as he was questioned by a number of lawmakers there. As you take a look from Capitol Hill again today, that is at the Senate Armed Forces Committee. Yesterday, he was asked tough questions in front of the House Armed Forces Committee, where he testified. I just want to take you through a few of those moments and let you listen in as it became quite heated a few times. Take a listen here. This is Pete Hegseth yesterday in front of the House Armed Services Committee.
Stop. Based on the
Stop reclaiming my time.
Because you yell doesn't make you right.
calling-
The biggest challenge, the biggest adversary we face at this point are the reckless, feckless, and defeatist words of congressional Democrats and some Republicans.
Praise.
Everything I have seen, you have surpassed all of my expectations, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
The President has got himself and America stuck in the quagmire of another war in the Middle East. He's desperately trying to extricate himself from his own mistakes.
You call it a quagmire, handing propaganda to our enemies? Shame on you for that statement. And statements like that are reckless to our troops.
Early on, the Pentagon's chief financial officer disclosed for the first time the war's $25 billion cost.
So you're saying the full cost at this point is $25 billion?
Yeah, that's our estimate for the cost.
Okay, interesting, because I'm glad you answered that question, because we've been asking for a hell of a long time, and no one's given us the numbers.
Do you know how much it will cost Americans in terms of their increased cost in gas and food over the next year because of the Iran war?
I would simply ask you what the cost is of an Iranian nuclear bomb.
I'm going to give you that opportunity.
I would simply ask you what the... you're playing gotcha questions about domestic things. I'm not...
You're saying it's a gotcha question to ask what it's going to be in terms of the increased cost of gas.
Why won't you answer what it costs to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb?
I give you that, sir. You don't know what we're paying in terms of gas. You don't know what we're paying in terms of food. Your $25 billion number is totally off. It's the incompetence. It's the incompetence.
I share a bipartisan concern of the firings that we've seen at the Pentagon. And I would just point out, it may be constitutionally right. You have the constitutional right to do these things, but it doesn't make it right or wise.
It's very difficult to change the culture of a department that was been destroyed by the wrong perspectives.
So you think General George destroyed a culture?
There are many. We've gotten rid of many general officers in this administration because we need new leadership.
You have no way of explaining why you fired one of the most decorated and remarkable men who's
we
ever
needed
served
new
the
leadership.
Nation.
That's
and
my
so
answer.
your answer is a very immature way of responding to my request.
China continues to invest heavily in the PLA's military modernization, announcing another 7% increase in defense spending this year. As a result, they are spending more of their GDP on defense than we are.
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, called the request a much-needed long-term investment.
As we look at the character of warfare changing very, very fast, what's layered in to this budget by our civilian leaders will allow us to start getting ahead of where technology is evolving.
Yeah, so Pete Hegseth and General of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, General Dan Kane, testifying in front of Congress on the war in Iran. Notably, lots of ducking and dodging. That's, of course, something done in every Capitol hearing. But also, notably, again, there was a lot of Democrats, Democrats and Republicans that were pressing these leaders on things and actions that they have done since being inside the military. Now, one thing that was not made clear, still hasn't been made clear yet. We know The original outline from the White House was 4 to 6 weeks for when the war in Iran was going to end. Of course, it has been over 4 to 6 weeks. It's still unclear exactly when this war is going to come to an end. And it's also, and then there's something else I'll also note, I'm not sure, I'm not inside the military, I'm not inside those rooms, but can you predict when a war is going to be over? I don't know. So, but I did want to just note that. Pam Bondi, she's also set to testify in front of the House Oversight Committee. I'm not sure if it's going to be a testimony or private meeting. Of course, she's the former Attorney General. She was fired just earlier this month, I believe. This hearing will be, again, in front of the House Oversight Committee. It's going to focus on her handling of the Epstein files. And that was one of the questions that had been asked after Bondi had been fired, is if it was still if she was still going to testify. Alrighty, Trump revealing a private conversation with King Charles during a state dinner back on Tuesday night. Want to play that moment for you. This was at the White House.
And we're doing a little Middle East work right now, too, if you might know. And we're doing very well. We have militarily defeated that particular opponent. And we're never going to let that opponent ever, Charles agrees with me, even more than I do, we're never going to let that opponent have a nuclear weapon. They know that.
Yeah, so you might be asking, why was it something that the Trump said that? I mean, he often says what people believe in private conversations. Well, according to this Associated Press reporter that I'm about to play for you, she says that it is standard for a president and the king to have a relationship that is, when it's private, and also that the king is not usually particularly kind of political, and because he doesn't have the exact resources to defend himself that other politicians might have. Here's an AP reporter kind of explaining kind of what I just said, but in better words.
There's just one problem with this. This came as a result of a private meeting between the king and the president. The problem here is that by convention, you don't normally report to anyone what you discussed with the king. Part of that is because the king is supposed to be above the political fray, but also because the king isn't really able to defend himself against comments made by other people.
Yeah, so the king isn't really able to defend himself against comments made by the other people. So again, a notable story, and something I really found out last night. I didn't know that you had to, I didn't know that you, of course, you respect the king and the queen in a different way than might you do just a regular politician, but I didn't know that there was a standard that maybe you were supposed to hold with those people already. So an interesting story that we will for sure follow and bring you updates to. I know the farewell ceremony for the king and his visit to the U.S. was also held today.
Though that I talked for so long is because I wanted to share the stories of the people this budget would impact. Not the people in this room, but the 3 million people who live across Arkansas who our decisions will have a direct impact on. I talked about the kids whose lives will be forever changed because we are fully funding EFAs. I talked about the teachers who are being paid more than ever because of the LEARNS Act. I talked about the schools that are going from F to B and soon to A because we made the changes we needed to in our education system. You heard from new state troopers who are moving here because of competitive pay offered through the new pay plan. You heard from Arkansans who moved from crisis to career because of the type of integrated faith-based programming our state now offers through the 1033 initiative. And finally, I told stories of 2 veterans, Dustin Singer and Mason Bennett, who are now building new homes here in Arkansas because of the work that we have done to make it the best state in America to live, to work, and to raise a family. And today I'm signing a budget that fulfills our promise to each of those Arkansans, investing in key priorities while keeping overall spending low.
Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders there signing the Arkansas budget. You heard that right. This is a $6.7 billion budget for the funding year of 2027, which represents a 3% increase from the previous year. This budget closes out the fiscal session and sets the state's priorities for the year beginning July 1st. It fulfills promises to fund priorities like, quote, education freedom, accounts, and the state employee pay plan while maintaining control of overall spending. The budget includes $309.4 million in general revenue for the school voucher program and set aside $70 million in surplus funds for potential program growth. It also allows up to $300 million in surplus funds for a possible manufacturing project in West Memphis, which Sanders describes as a, quote, massive economic investment for the region. Again, it's unclear what that investment exactly is. We just know it's a big one. Next week, legislative leaders are expected to return for a special session here in the Arkansas legislature focused on cutting state income taxes. Although Sanders has not officially called the session yet, the tax package is anticipated to be the fourth tax cut in 3 years for Arkansans, reducing the state's overall income tax by 25% since Sanders took office back in 2023. It will also include a reduction in the corporate tax rate. Now, critics of the school voucher program, such as State Senator Brian King, argued that it subsidizes education for families already paying for private school. Sanders emphasizes that Arkansas is in, quote, a very good position, but acknowledges there is still work to be done. And another story right here in Arkansas, right here actually in Northeast Arkansas. A lot of people here in Jonesboro and Brookland work for Big River Steel. We're now learning that the U.S. Steel, that's like the national group that oversees these organizations, announced a $1.9 billion investment to build a new direct reduced iron DRI facility at the Big River Steel Works in Osceola. I want you to kind of show you this plan here for you if we can get it on your screen. Here is what the plan shows. You see it zooming in there on your screen. This is a first of its kind in the United States, and as part of U.S. Steel's strategy to enhance its next generation steelmaking capabilities, the investment builds on U.S. Steel's 2022 investment in direct reduced grade pellet capabilities at its Minnesota ore operations Keetac plant, creating a direct link between mining operations, EAF feedstock creation, and steel production. By locating DRI production at Big River Steel Works, U.S. Steel will eliminate the need to ship DRI, gaining a competitive sourcing advantage for Big River's feedstock. This vertical integration strengthens U.S. Steel's position as a leader in modern, efficient steelmaking and secures its competitive advantage for long-term access. Now, the project is expected to support approximately 200 full-time employees at Big River Steel Works and 35 full-time contractor roles, while creating estimated 2,000 construction jobs at peak. This investment advances vertical integration across U.S. Steel operations. So again, just to start to a big project that U.S. Steel announced a big investment over at Big River Steel. Alrighty there. Now back to a little bit of politics here. So, a new report by CNN. It takes all of the things that not only does Trump want his name on, he wants his signature on, his image on, etc., and puts them into this group. And I kind of just say he wants to put a stamp on a lot of things, and that's kind of how it says there in the graphic below. And I'll kind of show you just an image at a few of these. Those things, they include like a passport, a gold coin, $1 coins, a gold card, Visa, an F-47 for the presidency, fighter jet, battleships, Trunk Bar X, a prescription drug website, Trump accounts, national park passes, the Kennedy Center, the U.S. Institute of Peace, federal buildings, images of himself on federal buildings, as you see there on your screen. Palm Beach International Airport, which will soon be the Donald J. Trump International Airport. Gold statue at his golf course. Some of these things are being paid by private donors. Others, they're being paid by the tax dollars, and it has caused a little bit of drama here, so that is going to be something to watch for. So a lot of things Trump wants to stamp on, and he announced today TrumpIRA.gov, which is about retirement savings, just another thing that he does want his name on. So again, another just piece of this Trump administration 2.0 that we're going to be monitoring. Okay, a look at this graphic from Fox News here, showing the new maps that Florida has just proposed and the Florida legislature approved late yesterday. The Florida legislature again approving a new congressional map proposed by Governor Ron DeSantis, which aims to provide Republicans with 4 additional seats. And I'm going to leave it on your screen here as I read this story so you can take a look at the differences in Democratic compared to Republican districts. And this is just kind of a prediction at what things might look like. It is, will add 4 additional Republican seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. This move is part of a strategy to maintain GOP control in the 2026 midterm elections. The bill now awaits DeSantis' final approval. Now, I want to play a piece of DeSantis speaking on Fox News the other night. This is on Laura Ingram's show. Take a listen here.
This has been a long-standing issue that we've had since I've been governor. I vetoed the legislature's maps in 2022. We ended up doing a compromise map, got rid of a racially gerrymandered district in North Florida, but we still had one in Southern Florida, which I don't think is constitutional. This map removes that racial gerrymander. We are also in a situation in Florida. We've had a massive population boom. So we have congressional districts. We had District 14, for example, had about 100,000 votes less than District 12 right, next to it, because we've had growth in certain parts of the state. So I've always wanted to do this. I think the numbers justify it. But that's really independent of Virginia or any of these other things. It's the right thing to do for Florida.
Yeah, so a lot of opinions there coming from Ron DeSantis, as he says it's the right thing to do for Florida. The proposed map, just like all of the other ones, have faced plenty of objections, including concerns from Democrats about violating the Fair Districts Amendment, which bans partisan gerrymandering. Democratic Minority Leader Fentress Driscoll requested a break to review the Supreme Court decision, but it was denied. DeSantis' general counsel, David Axelman, argues that the Supreme Court's decision against Louisiana's map supports their case against racial requirements in Florida's Constitution. Yeah, I want to play a moment here from the House floor after this vote was passed in the Florida House of Representatives. This is Florida Representative Angie Nixon with the megaphone, on the House floor in protest. Take a listen.
Representative Persons Mullica has waived closed. The question now recurs on final passage of HB 1D. The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will proceed to vote. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? The clerk will lock the machine and announce the vote.
83 yeas, 28 nays, Mr. Speaker.
Show the bill passes. Read the next bill.
None on the desk, Mr. Speaker.
Wow, wow, wow. A loud moment there inside the Florida's legislature as a Democrat, Angie Nixon, was yelling there in protest against the Florida redistricting maps. Now to a look outside live in Brookland, as you see there on your screen. It's a great day to step outside. Just a little chilly. If you tend to get cold, might need a jacket as you head outside. I want to get you to your forecast right now where things look over just the next few days. Tonight, cloudy skies continue throughout the day. A little bit of sun peeked out earlier, not too much though. We're going to look into a low of 50 as we go into Friday, high of 65, low of 49. Mostly cloudy skies. And again, as we go into Saturday, the sun peaks out again, a high of 65 and a low of 45. So for sure, something to watch here.
This is my last press conference as chair, and I will close with a few thoughts.
Alrighty there, Jerome Powell saying this is his last press conference as chair. Those remarks that he closed with, saying he will remain on the Board of Governors indefinitely due to a probe into the Fed's headquarter renovation, something President Trump and lots of Republicans have criticized deeply. It addresses a key question at the Federal Open Market Committee meeting. Powell stated he will not leave until the investigation is complete with transparency and finality. His decision denies President Trump a majority on the board. Powell's tenure as chair will end on May 15th, but he has 2 years remaining as governor. He congratulated his successor, Kevin Warsh, who's nominated moved forward in the Senate. Powell criticized Trump's personal attacks on the Fed, worrying about political influence. The Justice Department's investigation, led by by U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro has been a controversy, but recent developments have cleared a political roadblock for Warsh's confirmation. Pell plans to keep a low profile as governor there, so you see him announcing that he will be exiting the Board of Governors. Alrighty, right back here, live in Brookland News headquarters. Here in Brookland, Arkansas, as we now approach 3 o'clock, that is going to wrap up our coverage on this busy News Eve news day. Take a note, you're watching Brookland News Live. We had no commercial breaks this entire hour. We watched live video. We did all the news. You got all the information you needed for today, and we're going to get you back up to date tomorrow, coming up at 2 p.m. Join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. for a shortened show. As long as there's no big breaking news, we'll do a 30-minute show. Join us then. You're watching Brookland News Live. Have a great rest of your evening. Stay safe, you guys. We're back here tomorrow.